evening, everyone. Welcome to Ganga Jamuni's 15th Facebook Live session. For today's session, we have Priya and Kapil Kapoor, the directors at Roli Books. And Roli Books has produced some of India's finest illustrated books, award winning books, and they're always winning awards. And we're going to know why today. So, before I welcome them on board, I want to wish you all a very happy Eid. Eid Mubarak to all of us, and let's hope that very soon we will be able to meet each other and greet. Um, so for today's Eid, let's think of the ones who are on the roads and unable to be with their families. So just a thought for them, and let's begin our session. Okay. Hi Priya. Hi Kapil. Welcome.
Hello, hello, thank you.
Hello.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you so much for being with us. Um, I am so happy because I have taught so many students in the past 15 years that I've been a teacher, and I've talked to them about careers and possibilities. I've never met a publisher. I have never met anybody who's a real publisher. And here right now, I have two young publishers. So, without any further, ado, I'm just going to ask you, what is the world of publishing like? What does it entail? What do you do? What are your jobs like? Could you walk us through that universe?
Mm. Should I go first or
Please
Kapil, you
do.
want to? Okay. No, thank you for having us and Eid Mubarak to everybody who's watching and listening. It's a good question because publishing in a publishing house there are many different departments, just like there are in different industries as well, and they all come together to create a book. And first and foremost, I would say that if you like reading, if you like the written word, if you enjoy working with ideas and with people, it's a very good industry to be associated with. There are great rewards that come with being involved in something that which is a book, which is tangible, and it has a very long life. It's going to hopefully be around for a very long time. So it's a very in that from that point of view, it's a very exciting place to be because you literally see something come to life in front of you. What does a typical day entail? There is no such thing as a typical day in a publishing house, to be honest. I mean, apart from, I can speak from the editorial design and the more creative process. We have quite a lot of meetings with our authors as well as new authors to always be coming up with new ideas, commissioning books as well, help them develop ideas that they may have of their own. Then we sort of have, we are either wetting manuscripts or editing manuscripts, or we're doing picture research, or we're working with our design team to bring alive both the text and the photographs on a page. We're working with our marketing teams to figure out what is the best way of reaching our readers with these incredible books. And of course, everybody comes together, as I said, to find a way to bring these books to life and to help promote them.
But Kapil,
Yes.
right? So Kapil, could you tell us how do you actually curate? Like what is which author, for instance, which from beginning, from which author to like editing, and there's a whole lot of work that is involved in producing and publishing a book, right? So could you
Right.
take us through that from the very inception to when your authors approaching you, for instance? So could you take us through that, please?
Sure, sure. So, first of all, thank you for having us. Mubarak to everyone watching and listening. Before I answer in terms of, what is a typical day like and the whole publishing process, there are all types of people. And I think if you enjoy something which follows a set routine or quite mechanical and doing the same things every day again and again, then publishing is definitely not for you. I think publishing is one profession where every day is completely different. And if you enjoy meeting people from all walks of life, then I think this is one of the most rewarding professions. This is what I enjoy the most because you know, authors come from all walks of life, and they have spent, years working on the manuscript or their particular, interest. So it's very, very educational. It's very rewarding to meet these people and to understand, which part of uh, life they've come from, and you learn something every day. So I think if you're a inquisitive mind, you're curious about the world, you want to question things. I think it's very extremely rewarding. So I think that's something which is quite unique to publishing compared to any other job, desk job for that matter. So that's one thing I wanted to add to Priya's point. Now, coming to how do we go about from the beginning till when the book is printed, uh, it varies from publishing company to publishing company. I think people there's no one way which is typical to all publishing houses. I think this is where the culture of every publishing house.
Kapil, may I ask you to pause? There's a bit of an interruption here. Right. We're good now.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was saying it depends from publishing company to publishing company. Speaking about Roli Books, I think we're quite good, and we really like to commission our own ideas. I mean, that's something we do, the most. So 80% of the books that we publish and that come out are results of ideas that stem from our brainstorm editorial meetings and so on. And this could be, you take any topic that we feel should be published. And this has inputs from a commercial side. So a sales and marketing input is there. Of course, the editorial input is there. And we sit together, we brainstorm quite regularly to say, I think a book of us on a certain topic at a certain price in a certain format would do well. And so that's really the germ of the idea starts from there. And then we go out and look for authors, photographers, illustrators to really bring that idea to, to fruition. And there starts a whole process where our commissioning editors will go out and find the right fit, speak to people, and then once you speak to potential authors, that idea develops even further, because when you speak to the the experts in that field, they only help you to improve on that idea. And then we commission those authors. They write the manuscript, and there's a lot of back and forth with our editorial teams. Once once the manuscript is in and the photographs, if it's an illustrated book, the photographs and the illustrations are in, then our art director and designers sort of work on it, design the book. We pay a lot of attention to the look and feel of a book as well. So there is quite a lot of time spent upon how the book should be designed, how it should be laid out, what sort of production qualities the book should have. So we really want the end printed book to be quite desirable object. You should be proud. It should be and then yes, and then we work with various printers across the country and some overseas. So we make sure that the book is printed to the highest quality. And once we have the book in our hands, then we do our best to market it and sell it through all available channels, whether it's through bookstores, through online libraries, wherever we can sort of get sell the book. So that's really
my personal experience, Kapil. I have to say, if you buy one Roli book, you can't stop buying, because
that's good.
they are the best and the finest in
Thank
terms
you.
of their design and aesthetics, and of course the content. Um, uh, so it's possibly the magic that you all put together. Priya, I believe this is not a very big team. So it says that it's a mid-sized company. How do you manage to have that kind of output? So it's amazing. The output is incredible, right? And are you guys working 36 hours a day, or how do you manage this?
No, that's a really good question because from the other side, you always feel like you should be doing more. So you see, it's like that. I think it's more about
Priya, I'll have to, sorry, this is, I'm so sorry, the train of thought. Just pause a bit. There's a disruption. Yes, please.
okay.
Sorry about that.
Now, yeah. No, that's fine. I was saying that, we have a very good team. Some four members of the team have been with us for a very long time. And, I feel that, yes, we all work incredibly hard. We have, the good fortune of now becoming a very sort of well-oiled machinery where
Mm,
everybody comes together to produce these books as well. We do use a pool of dedicated freelancers. Most of them have been a part of the full-time Roli team at some point, and for various reasons have now chosen to only freelance. So we do rely on them as well, both designers as well as editors. But in terms of how many people in the in the editorial team at any given point, there are five full-time, and then we've got other associated team members as well. For example, a picture researcher, excuse me, the design team and so on that come together. So, as I said, you always feel like you could do more, but I think there's also a lot of enthusiasm because, as Kapil said, that every book that we do, it tends to be very different. So there's never a boring period. I mean, you're always trying to, like, you finish a book, you're excited to move on to the next one because it's completely different from what you were doing. You get an opportunity to work with a different author. You're also getting an opportunity to learn something about a field that you may not know much about. So there's always that amount of enthusiasm as well. But personally, I feel like we could do more. But yeah, more books.
hmm. Priya's talking like a director. Okay. So this is the question. So, for a young person wanting to have a career in publishing, how do they go about this? Like, if they want to be in the editorial team or in the design team, how is it that you select your candidates?
Hmm. From like 3 months, which is typically a design it's not something that is mandated. They feel like they need to get experience in various fields before they enter it. So I would definitely say a good place to begin is to do an internship because you really understand the nuts and bolts of how a publishing house works and whether it's for you or not.
Hmm.
And as an intern, you do get exposed to, especially in a company the size of ours, where everybody's kind of doing everything. There's always an opportunity. If you want to do more, there's always an opportunity to do that. And I found that we've also hired a lot of past interns because not only did they show that kind of spark or enthusiasm or excitement for the publishing industry, but they've also sort of remained committed, and therefore they've come back and applied for jobs as well. So one is to show that I mean, I one of the most sort of banal answers when we interview is that why would you like to get into the publishing industry? Because I like to read. But that's not good enough, because that's not all we do. That's not that, everything that you have to think laterally. You have to think across everything to see what a book requires to come out. And, you need to have, at least, of course, in the beginning, you many opportunities design, editorial, marketing. Even
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that to say definitely. I think for young people, an internship is sort of the most useful way entry point, especially into a company like Roli Books. But I would say across all publishing houses, they all welcome interns, and I think this is a really good way to have an insight into various different things. And I think one of the most important skills that we would look out for, an intern we're an ideas business, especially a company like Roli Books. It's full of ideas, and we welcome ideas from every single department, every corner of the company. So if you have lots of ideas, you're creative, and you are and you voice those ideas and you express them in a sort of engaging way, then I think that is the most important skill. It's not how much you read, it's not how much you enjoy writing even. It's really the ideas to which can bring something new, whether it is a new idea to publish, or a new way of marketing a book, or a new way of reaching. Today, the digital world, we're talking on a Facebook Live right now, and we're reaching out to so many people across the country. Some of these tools were not available even 5, 7, 10 years ago.
Right.
So today, to reach your readers, no matter where they are in the country or the world for that matter, is so much easier. I mean, through this lockdown, we have seen that we can reach out to people anywhere in the world, and at the click of very instantly, we can let people know about books we published, or ideas can use these technologies and platforms the better you are at using them for a commercial purpose. So young people have taught us the most, in terms of what we can do and how we can really leverage these platforms.
Right.
In fact, I think just for us in Roli Books, the last 2 months, we've been a huge learning curve, and most of our younger colleagues have taught us everything about how we can communicate effectively throughout this lockdown. And publishing in particular really benefits from these digital platforms which are available to all of us. So I think that is something which I would say is as a piece of advice to young people wanting to join publishing, is have a lot of ideas, be curious, be inquisitive, do not feel shy to voice your ideas, because some of the best ideas come from them.
Right.
I would just add to that as well, and say that, another thing that will really help, especially if it's their first job or they're applying to first jobs, is that, you must read and do your homework and research on the various kinds of publishing variety. Everyone has their unique strengths.
Priya,
So it's also important
Priya,
to know what interests you. Are you into
Priya, I'm afraid you'll have to repeat.
Are you into commercial fiction? Sorry?
I'm afraid we lost you for a bit. You were saying something
Okay.
about so for the young people, you started off and then we lost you. Sorry.
No, I was saying that, it's also important for people who want to enter any industry, but even, more so specifically in the publishing industry, to do your research to see what the different publishing houses are doing and who they would like to be associated with. Each publishing house has a personality and unique strengths. It always helps to know that what are the ones that they are aligned to. Is it
Right.
children's books? Is it mass market fiction? Is it illustrated books? Is it academic books, because that's their bent of mind. So it's also important to do your own research to see where you see your skills and interests fitting best.
Right. Right. Your bookstore. First of all, I want to ask you. I've been to that bookstore so many times in so many different locations. So, is that an acronym? What does CMYK stand for?
Kapil, you were yeah.
That I used in printing. So we're referring to these four colors, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which is where we use K, because in printing terminology they use key line, which is a black line, and so K is for black. So it's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And with these four colors, you can make any color. So four color printing comes from these. And we called our bookstore CMYKs because primarily this bookstore was, focusing on art and design books, which are, highly illustrated, very visual, for most of the creative industries like art, photography, design, fashion, architecture and so on. So we thought it was a apt name for for the bookstore. So yeah, that's what CMYK stands for.
So for our viewers who are not in Delhi, could you tell us, I know like of a bunch of them, but could you tell us of some of the stores, and maybe you can tell us which one is the most unique according to you?
Yeah, if you're in Bombay, then we have a store in. It's actually quite an iconic store. It's been around for many decades. Taj Hotel.
Mm.
The store was always been known as Nalanda.
Sorry,
So,
Kapil,
can you hear me?
you mentioned Taj
I think-
Hotel.
Yeah, I said Taj Hotel in Kolaba
Yeah.
in Bombay, and the name of the bookstore has always been Nalanda.
Yes.
And so now we took over that location, I would say maybe about 3 years ago, and so we call it Nalanda by CMYK. So that's one of the stores. The other store is a shop in shop in Bombay. It's in Lower Parel, inside a larger lifestyle shop, Good Earth. And so there is a CMYK inside Good Earth. Those are the two stores in Mumbai. In Chennai, we also have a shop in shop, which is inside a store called Amethyst. And there we have a corner where CMYK is there. In Pondicherry as well, inside the Amethyst store in Pondicherry, we have a store. Then coming to Delhi, we have recently shifted location. So we're going to be, I mean, if it wasn't for the lockdown, we would have been open now. But I think we have just resumed work, and I think the store will be open very soon, in about a month's time. And this is in Greater Kailash too. It's in fact where the Roli Books office is.
Right.
So it's in M Block Market in GK2. By the end of June, it should be functional. Then we have 3 quite unique bookstores in Jaipur.
Yes.
And these three, well, I call them bookstores, but they're not exclusively bookstores. There are gift and souvenir shops, because they are in quite popular, monuments, tourist locations. So one is in Amber Fort.
Yes.
One is in the Jantar Mantar,
Right.
and the third is in the Albert Hall Museum.
Right.
These 3 stores are like I said, have about 50 to 60% in them.
Very popular. Very, very popular. In fact,
Online, we have an online presence. So CMYKbookstore.com is there, so people from across India can buy it.
right. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and you can have a differing answer to that. Which one do you think of late has been, your best book, the book that you've personally loved and you felt very, very proud of?
I'm proud of every single book. There's so much hard work that goes beyond and behind, right from the conception, and how much work authors put into it, and just sort of bringing that book to life. There's so much work that I'm really proud of every single book that comes out. It would really be impossible, and I wouldn't have one that I would say that I'm more proud of than the others. Of course, there are ones that are everything kind of aligns, the universe aligns, and it tends to be very topical, and you kind of feel like, wow, it was serendipitous that it came out at a time when it was really in the news for all the right reasons and so on. And those tend to be very memorable. And we had a great lineup. Success was a book that we published in November called Black Warrant, Confessions of a Tihar Jailer, in which Sunil Gupta, who actually was a Tihar jailer for over 35 years, wrote his memoirs. And, he'd seen everything, including 8 hangings, to very famous prisoners like Charles Sobraj. He was there when the jailbreak happened. He was also in charge of the hangings. He was sort of in charge of responsible for overseeing the hangings in Tihar. So he'd seen everything from Billa Ranga to Indira Gandhi's assassins. Afzal Guru was being the most recent one before he retired. And the process of writing was very interesting. We were very, very involved at Roli Books in that. And that at the time, soon after when this book came out, was when the entire Nirbhaya case was back in the news, because the four who had been convicted of her rape and murder, there was that entire period of back and forth between, whether they were going to actually be hanged, or was there going to be a prolonged mercy petition and so on. And during that time, the book, there was a lot of, people wanted to understand the procedure. They wanted to know what really goes behind. And it just happened that the book personal account of what happens inside Himalayan. So that it was well written, it was a great story, it was timed pretty well. We were able to make a big splash, but we've got a very exciting lineup for the rest of the year, and we're just trying to find ways slowly as things go back to normal, where we can bring those books to life. And one or two that I really want to talk about is we're doing an illustrated biography of His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Yes.
And the writer of that book was his former private secretary, who had been with him and the private office for over 30 years. And therefore had unprecedented access. The foreword for the book has been written by His Holiness's youngest brother, who also lives in Dharamsala. And the photographs that we see, because it is an illustrated biography, are spectacular. They're very rare. They've come from the family albums themselves. So really, they've never been seen by anyone except for the family. And it's just been a beautiful journey working on this book, because it's a very inspirational life. It's not been an easy life, and he's carried a huge burden on his shoulders for the entire country and his people, and how he's been able to do that with so much compassion, kindness, patience, and really become an iconic leader of the world, not just for the Tibetans. So it's been a really process, and now we're sort of in the middle of putting the final touches. There is going to be multiple language editions around the world. There's couple can tell us more about that. And we're also publishing a book of translations, which we've not done in a long time, which is Manu Bhandari, who was an iconic Hindi writer. She was, also known for her progressive stories about women. So there's a translator who lives in California who's actually translated 10 of her stories. Namita Gokhale has done the foreword to the book. Everything is ready. We're just waiting for the printers to start working so we can send the book to press.
Great.
I'll add one book to which stands out, and I'll explain the reasons why. This is a book we published maybe two and a half years ago. And the reason I bring this book up is because it's very typical of the process that I mentioned earlier, which is quite unique to Roli Books, where we come up with an idea, and really from just that germ of an idea until the book is published, it's something that was completely commissioned in-house. And this was quite an ambitious cookbook that we had done, and it's called Tiffin. And this book, it was an idea that started in-house, where we said that we want to cover, to celebrate the regional, wonders of India, and that every single state should be represented in a because which are so-called Indian books, they are and then you have quite a mix from Kerala next to something from UP. So while we are saying it's obviously all under Indian cuisine, they're quite different altogether. In fact, you can say, we all know that there is about 20-30 different cuisines, if not more, in our country. So what we wanted to do is make a really beautiful cookbook, but at the same time be representative of every single region and state, and explain to the user or the reader how each state has its own nuances, has its own flavors, spices, ways of cooking, and so on. So this was a book which was the concept and the idea was from within the company, and then we went out and looked for all the various actors. So there was an author who did all the research and put together the recipes. There was an illustrator who beautifully designed the book. There was a photographer who shot most of the recipes. Then, of course, our art director Sneha, who worked on the design of the book, and of course we won award. She's won an award for the art design of this book. And then this. The other part, so this was, of course, the making of the book. The other part, which was really quite rewarding, was the success that this book found internationally. Right. So not only were we quite proud of it, and it really was as we intended it to be, like the regional Bible of Indian food, but then it was appreciated all over the world. It was selected by New York Times in America to be one of the best 10 cookbooks of the year. It's won numerous publishing awards, both for its design and its content. It's been translated into German. So it was a commercial success for us as well. So that it just completed the whole circle. Right. And through that one project, you can see exactly how our company works, where you start with an idea, and then it touched a lot of people's hands as before it came out to be published. So that's a book that I would like to single out, only for the process of publishing that right. book went through.
Yeah, what beautiful book that is. I actually have a copy of that book. This is going to be our last question for this evening. For both of you, could you share your thoughts on how books, and good books in particular, build a nation, build a society that is critically thinking and is able to think for itself? Could you share your views there?
Yeah, I'll start, because I think the answer is quite short and quite straightforward for me. I think without books and without reading, I think you can't even begin to build a nation or a thought. But I think because everything stems from that. If you look, it's been the most effective and resilient way of communication for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. I think some of the best and the most important, ideas have been communicated through the written word. It's the most powerful way of communicating. It's something that you can read on your own, let it sort of settle in your thinking, and then you form opinions. You might disagree with it, you might agree with it, but without understanding another person's point of view, or about learning about the history, culture, anything about your own culture, another culture, how can you even begin to have a reasonable conversation with anybody? I mean, you say without books, I think you are quite ignorant about many things. So whether you've read one book in that year, or you've read 100 books that year, I think that every book that you read makes you a smarter person, makes you a person who is that much more aware. And you could be, it could help you only believe what you already believed even more strongly, or it could help you change your ideas. But both are just as important. So I think there's no debate about the fact that books are important, and the fact that the written word. I mean, today you can read digitally, or you read in print. That has no bearing on the process. But the fact that you read other ideas and are able to shape your own thoughts, and based on that, I think is critical. I think without it is you can't even begin to to move forward.
Before Priya starts to answer this, I want to actually share something which I feel particular about Roli Books. I feel like, one of the books, the first books that I picked up was about the last Maharajas, and then there was another one I have, saris, 50 saris, or is it 500 or is it 50? So
it's saris of India. Yeah.
Saris of India. So 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 many of these books, they kind of bring bring forth the diversity of India, and at the same time, they kind of take us back to the heritage, and I feel that's very powerful, especially in these times where you know it's so charged, the atmosphere is so charged, and there's always room for debate which can lead to violent communication, for that matter. So I thought that this was a great service you were doing, and the illustrations are very beautiful. They reach out to everybody. They illustrations speak to young people, to older people, to people of all kinds and backgrounds. So that's a great job, I feel. So Priya, you were saying something.
No, I mean, I agree with everything that Kapil has just said. I feel that if you don't know where you've come from, how will you know where you're going?
Right.
And, there's no better method, there's no better resource than books. I mean, they have the power to change lives. They've been central to ideas, political movements, religions, thought processes, political ideologies. Without books and ideas and the dissemination of ideas, how would we even be where we are? And how do we find a solution from where we are as well? And in terms of, while during this pandemic and so on, there's been a lot of conversation around books and how important they are and why they're essential. And one of the things that the WHO put out was, the World Health Organization put out, was that books boost mental health. They make you better people. They make you more empathetic. And that's because if you read about the lives of others, and that's the best way to actually understand the world that we live in and to find our own way through it as well. And that, therefore, I mean, different people read for different reasons. Some people may be reading because it helps them get ahead. They like to read more self-help books. They like to read more business-oriented books. Some people like to read for pleasure, their main focus being fiction. Some others like to read nonfiction. I would just say read anything, read whatever you want, because trust me, at some point or the other, somewhere that thought that while you were reading is embedded in your mind. It's helping to shape the way you think. It's helping the way that you communicate, the way that you look at the world as well. And therefore, I feel that there's no better way than to actually travel the world, to understand the world, than to read. I mean, you've got it all literally right there in front of you in the form of books.
Right. So reading books is good for mental health, says WHO, and reading good books and beautifully illustrated artistic books are even more important, I feel. They broaden your mental horizons. They give you this great openness, and you become open-minded, and you sort of indulge yourselves in finer pursuits in life. So thank you both so much for joining us today at Ganga Jamuni, and
Thank
sharing
you.
how you can turn a manuscript into literally a work of art. Um, Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
so
great
much.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks,
Thank you.
thanks. Have a great
All right.
evening.
You too.
Bye. Bye.
Bye
Bye.
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 Bye bye.
Bye.